All right, so welcome to for everyone watching and in the Discord and for everyone who's watching the recording, welcome to the Ractive-Player workshop. My name is Yuri, your host. And so first I want to just get us to have something that we can run and experiment with, and then I'll sort of go back and explain everything that's going on. So things you'll need are a text editor, so VS Code is a pretty good one. Personally, I use Sublime Text, but VS Code is free. You'll also need to have Node.js installed. 14 should be fine. And eventually you will need FFmpeg installed, although this is sort of for the very end. So this is just sort of deals with converting audio and video files. And so we're going to download the following template. So this is sort of a basic template to get started. Download this. There we go. Let's put that in here. Okay. And then, so I am going to assume you're familiar with using a command line. So we'll go into that directory. Let me call this my video, rename this to my video. Okay, so I hope you're following along with this, and also if you're on the Discord, feel free to just interrupt me at any time to ask questions. So once we're in here, the first thing you want to type is npm install. So npm is something that was installed by Node, and so once we type that, if we ls, we'll see we now have its directory Node modules in here. And then type npm start. It should open up and give you this. Maybe you might have to refresh it once, but then you should end up with the player that just says hello world. So for everyone who's on the live stream, do you have this?
Yeah, it looks good.
Great. Okay.
We'll be getting there, hopefully.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I'm just having some issues with the computer, but go on, sorry.
Okay. So now I'm going to open up this directory in my text editor. And so now let's try to modify some things. So first file we'll go into is index.tsx. Let's just change hello world to hello everybody. And then I go and press refresh, and now I see, the text has changed to hello everybody. And then the other file I'm going to open up is style.css. And so here I'm going to type h1 color blue, and as soon as I save, the color is updated in the browser. So basically all this library does is it lets you make videos out of HTML. That means you still need to know HTML in order to make the video, and all of the sort of features like math or graphics or whatever are provided by other web libraries that just do those things. So a lot of people are watching this probably haven't done much web development beyond making a sort of a simple personal web page. So whereas this is sort of using a lot of more complicated modern web development tools. So I want to start by just sort of giving to some basics of the web. Actually, maybe I could even do it in here. So there's essentially 3 languages on the web, which are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And SVG is also sort of in the same vein as HTML. So these are the only languages that your browser understands. So HTML is just what describes content. So this is the HTML file here. CSS is what says how content should look. So here's where we put like font colors, font sizes, and so on. And then JavaScript is sort of what tells the page how to behave. So here, it looks like we're writing HTML in here, but really this is in a JavaScript file that will get, or this is in a file that will get turned into JavaScript and then understood by the browser. So if we open up bundle.js, there's a whole bunch of crazy looking stuff, but somewhere in here is the content that we actually made. So we're actually going to be writing something that looks like HTML, but then it'll get turned into JavaScript for the browser to understand. So if you're uploading this to a server, like a page on the web for people to view your video, the only files you would upload are index.html, bundle.js, and style.css. So maybe let me go upload this to Ractive-Player.org. So go to Ractive-Player.org/r/myvideo, and right now there's nothing there. But if I upload index.html, style.css, and bundle.js, now I have that video. So when you're uploading your video to a server, those are the only three files you need. So now let me explain what the rest of all of this is doing. So I'll put it in here. So the basic languages were HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The other tools we're using, actually we'll just go back in here. Other tools are React and TypeScript and webpack. So let me go through each of these. So React is a piece of software made by Facebook, so we can sort of see that here. And what it is it's a syntax, I guess it solves two problems. So it looks like sort of like HTML. You can put this HTML-like content in your JavaScript, but you're able to put tags that aren't actual HTML tags, like player and lesson. So one of the problems React solves is the ability to, in essence, like in HTML, you can't create your own elements to sort of break content down into pieces, whereas in React you can. So if I wanted to say function other tools, then I can do this. Oh, I need to do this to, so this is another React thing that's just saying I'm going to return a fragment. Now if I do other tools, it'll give me the same thing. So this lets you break up your content into lots of different pieces. So for example, when I'm developing, I'll often have like one file for each slide and then import that content. The other thing React solves is the problem of being able to like dynamicize these. So if I wanted to say items equals this and be able to just sort of pass this and modify this here, then I could do the following. So again, I'll sort of explain the syntax more in a second. So item goes to key equals item and then it will get mad at us for some reason. Let's go into, there's an error on line 30. You just need to put parentheses around that. Oh, props.items, plural. Okay, yeah, so now that works, and now we could change this to, I don't know, could add node, and then this would automatically appear. So it lets you sort of abstract and put data in your components as well. So all the interactivity will be sort of done using more complicated like React components. TypeScript. So the .x here is sort of a React thing. If you were just doing plain React, you would do index.jsx. It's possible to use React without this HTML-like syntax, but it's sort of a lot more painful. So TypeScript is an extension, is something made by Microsoft, and it adds typing information to JavaScript. So JavaScript by default doesn't have any types. Here it says now props any, but I could add typing to this and said, okay, items is supposed to be an array of strings, and then maybe if I say added the number 4, the compiler would warn me that like, oh, that's a number, it's not a string. Or if I forgot to pass an array and I just tried to put a single string, it would tell me type string is not assignable to type string. So you don't need to use this, and like you can use plain JavaScript. You can also just use TypeScript and not put the types anywhere. So TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. But having the typings helps to catch a lot of bugs. So for example, let's go back here. If I had declared the type of props, then see, remember I had this issue that I'd typed prop.item instead of prop.items. It would warn me, oh, that doesn't exist. Did you mean items? Okay, so this really catches a lot of bugs. And the Ractive-Player library has typing, so it'll, if I do this, it'll tell me that ASDF isn't a valid property. So then webpack is, I guess we didn't explicitly use webpack, but when we ran npm start, what it did is it ran this server. So you don't need to understand what's in this server. But webpack is a thing that compiles, well, it does two things. One, that compiles our React into normal JavaScript that the browser can understand. And it lets us split our content into multiple files. So here I've got this markers file that I do here, and then I import that into my main file. So TypeScript can convert TypeScript into JavaScript, but it doesn't bundle files all into one file. And again, normally when I refresh, normally if you modify the CSS, you would need to, if I do this, normally you would need to refresh the page in order to see the changes. That's another thing this server is doing, is using a tool called LiveReload, which will automatically refresh the styles anytime they get changed. So using this, we can get sort of like a GUI experience. So, for instance, if we wanted to center an H1, so an H1 is a header tag, we could just press text align center, and then it would go like this. Usually, though, in this setup, we want to position, like here when I put 3 languages on the web, everything else came after that. Usually in this setup, you'll want to sort of position each element individually. So I have to do position absolute. I also want this to be position absolute. So now everything is sort of stacked on top of each other. Let me do ID equals languages list, ID equals tools list, refresh the page, and so now I'm going to type languages left 20%, top 10%, and now this is positioned somewhere. Then like languages list left 20%, top 15%, or 20%, like that. Also, once I do text to make this position absolute, the text align center doesn't do anything anymore. So this is just how to do some basic like text and font things. So for React, so for learning React, you'll want to look at the React website. I'll paste that link in the chat. Don't switch. For TypeScript, that's where you can go to learn TypeScript. And then for general web development stuff, the Mozilla Developer Network is really good. So here's like a reference on learning CSS, and they also have stuff on HTML. And then finally, here's a web page or a site I really like for just documentation of all kinds. Is devdocs.io, so you can just start typing in here like font size, which is a CSS thing, and it'll bring all this up. But it also has like React documentation. This is a very handy website. So we'll just pause here for any questions or like what you would like to, what you want to know how to do. Otherwise, I can keep.
Yeah, I'm beginning, and I'll watch the recording. Yeah, this is really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So right now, this video is not actually doing anything. So let me show you how to start making your content, actually depend on the video. So the way this system is set up is really sort of built around making like slideshow-like presentations. So essentially, this all works is we have markers which define periods of time. So right now we only have one, and it's intro, and it's 1 minute long, and the video is 1 minute long. And markers are sort of things we use to indicate when something should happen. So let's say I wanted to successively reveal these things, these list items, and create some markers like this. And the times don't matter for now. You can just sort of copy the times. And then here I'm going to do well, there's two ways you can do this. You can do data from first equals intro slash HTML. And put CSS, put JS. Let me just get rid of this for now. Now, if we refresh the page, we only have 3 languages on the web, but the video is now 4 minutes long, and once we get to the 1 minute mark, the HTML appears, 2 minute mark, CSS appears, and so on. So to navigate quickly between markers, if you press the E and W keys on your keyboard, then this will go back and forth between markers. So these were just chosen because they're like close to each other on the keyboard and convenient to press. You can change these, like when I'm recording, sometimes I change these to be controlled just by like a presentation clicker. That's more advanced, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. So right now these are 4 minutes long, but if we go in and change this to say, okay, so this should be like 1 second. Let's make all of these 1 second long. Then now the video is 4 seconds long. I press play, and that appears. So that is some of the basics of like showing and hiding. If you want to, maybe if you want to have something fade in or do more sophisticated like animations, I'll talk about that tomorrow, but this is sort of the basic way of just showing and hiding. Right, so here's data from first. There's also a convenience method for this. So if I go utils and then I write const from equals utils.authoring. So this is a JavaScript shorthand that's equivalent to from equals utils.authoring.from. Then I can change these to this. So this is a mix of React and JavaScript syntax. From, I'll just show what it does. So this will do the same thing. From gives this object, it returns this JavaScript object, and then in React, if you put like this ... and then a JavaScript object, it'll attach those as attributes. The other thing you can do, you can pass a second thing to this. Here we've got data from last. If we said like intro slash JS would be last, then this would disappear. So it's not really the last, but it's like the if you pass a second one, then it'll disappear at that point. So like this. The other thing we have for showing and hiding is during. So let's say we had 2 files. So now let me start breaking our content into different files. Let's say we have a slide for intro stuff. The export default function intro. And move all of this stuff into here. Put a section tag. So I want to import so I'll put this in here. Oh, and now since I'm in a new file, I have to put this import stuff in here. So usually I use index.tsx just to load, just to sort of start up the player and import all my content, but then put all the content in separate files. So here we don't have to worry about all this like controls and script stuff in React DOM. So let's say I wanted an intro file and then a file called like example. Example.tsx. Call this example. Here is a different example. And so when this appear, I want the example stuff to just not appear, at the same time as the intro thing. So one way to do that would be to, put this whole thing as from example. Actually, we need to make an example marker first. And then put on the intro oh yeah, so in my text editor I've made a shortcut for these because I use them so often. So one way to get that done would be to do this. Then when I go like this, that happens. But it's a little bit fragile to have to know in the intro that the next slide is going to be example. You don't really want that. So the other thing you can do is during. So during will make a piece of content visible as long as the marker name starts with whatever this string is. So this is why in the markers file, I made all of these markers start with the same thing. So this content will be visible exactly when the marker name starts with intro. We did during. Then it would be like this. And these don't have to even be contiguous. Like if we wanted to come back to a slide, say intro more. Here's some more stuff. So we don't see the here's the more stuff on our first trip through the intro slide. When we go to the examples, and then when we go to the next one, we get this. So this should not be, this one should not be visible, actually. Maybe I mixed something up. Well, I'll sort that out. So, and during is equivalent to writing. It's like this was a shortcut. From was a shortcut. This is equivalent to writing data during equals intro. Okay. So we'll pause again if there's you have any questions about this. So I haven't done really any interactivity yet, but just sort of showing how to do basic content creation. Probably won't do any real interactivity until tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So a lot of people are watching this are math people. Let's go see then how to add math content to this. So math, as I said, is not provided by this library. It's done. So the question is just how do we do math on the web? So we're going to use a library called katex for this. This is built by Khan Academy. So here's where you would learn about how katex works. But so it essentially is using LaTeX, and there's a package for Ractive-Player that wraps this and makes it easy to use this inside this library. So to include katex on our page, first we need to add some scripts. So this is some CSS and some JavaScript for katex. So this is sort of just what how you would use katex if you were making a normal web page. So we'd include that. And then to use it in Ractive-Player, we go into the directory where we had our template. We'll type npm install rp-katex. So that'll install. Okay, so now we've added one package, and now we'll do in here, go import from rp-katex. So import katex from rp-katex. This is katex is an element that will, or a component that'll do katex stuff for us. So katex, now we'll write y equals mx plus b. We refresh, we should be there. Let me try id equals math.
Quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
What was the name of the where you found katex? Sorry, the website.
Oh, katex.org.
Okay.
So then,
Thank
you
you.
copy these entries, and then the katex rp-katex was a separate extension, but you need to have like katex put on your website like this, or put on the HTML like this, and then where is the katex? That is interesting. Let me just maybe copy the katex commands from here. So this is a, we might have to put let me just, so this is from the math tutorial, which is sort of a much more comprehensive example of how to do various math things. So I'll try just using that version of katex in case, okay, maybe for some reason it's not working with the version 0.13 of katex, but it's working with the 0.12 version. So I guess I'll sort that out. But now we see we have this nice LaTeX formula. So once we've if we attach an ID to that, then we can also position that. So left 30%, top 10%, so maybe left 50%, and put that wherever we want on the page. Make it bigger and smaller, and so on. So a couple things that are useful when doing this. So first of all, if we try to put braces in a math formula, so let's say the quadratic formula, x equals negative b squared minus 4ac to a, this will break because braces have a special meaning in React. So what we need to do is put this whole thing in braces, and then put this in the actual formula in quotes. So if we try that, well, now the page doesn't break, but the formula breaks because now \f is being interpreted as like an escape sequence in JavaScript. So there's sort of two things we could do to fix this. One is to escape these all as double backslashes. And then now that works, we get the nice quadratic formula. One thing that's really convenient for typing these long math formulas and not wanting to, if you don't want to have to put all these double backslashes, is you can use what JavaScript calls a template string. So I put backticks here, and then if I put string.raw backtick, then all of these backslashes won't need to be escaped. And so we can just type in LaTeX the way we're used to. Another thing that the katex package, or the rp-katex package provides, so this isn't part of katex itself, but it provides a way to load macros from a file. So if I create a file called macros.tech, I say /new command, so let's say /rr. I don't think katex, I wonder if katex does /r, I don't think so. Okay, it does. What about Z? Okay, so it does a lot of black or bold letters, but it doesn't do /c. So if we wanted to make \c math BBC, so we don't have to type like this everywhere, then we can create this macros.tech file. And then if I put script source equals macros.tech, type equals math/tech, so then rp-katex, anytime you have a script with type math/tech in the head, it will load all those macros, load macros from that file, so then you can use macros in your code. And if you're making a lot of videos, then you could just have one macro file for all your videos and just reference that in each one. Okay, I think that covers all the sort of math things I wanted to say. So why don't we talk a little bit about recording? So we have all these timings, but we want to actually sync them up to some actual audio. So there's a few different ways to do this. So there's a recording. So in the bottom we have this recording circle. So this will allow me to record markers or timings for markers. Audio is grayed out here because of sort of a fundamental limitation of web browsers is you can only record audio in the browser if you're on an HTTPS site. So there's sort of two approaches. One would be to record the audio in a separate program on your own computer and then combine it with the markers. The other is to upload your page to a site that is HTTPS enabled, like your department website or something, and then you could record audio. So let me demonstrate both of those approaches, I guess. It is possible to get an HTTPS running on like a server running on your local machine, but it is very, very convoluted. So let me just get rid of that. Okay, so this is what I'm going to record. So first, and we'll show you what you would do if you were like recording audio in a separate program and the marker timings in here. So I'll go in here, I'll select markers to record. You can customize these commands. Then I'll start recording in Audacity. So there's basically three languages on the web. HTML and SVG, I guess, also sort of falls into that. CSS, which describes how content should look, and JavaScript, which allows you to make your content interactive. It says how content should behave. And here is a totally different example. Okay, so while I was recording, I was pressing the E and W keys or just the E key to move between markers. So here this gives me the list of the timings for these markers. And I'll just copy those into here. And so now I have sort of the correct timings. Like you could like record audio separately and then try to just figure out the times yourself, but this is a lot more convenient. And then since we're doing this in a separate program, so let's cut this out. Also, you might want to cut this out. This is bubble right here, I think, is picking up the sound of when I press like the start recording key. We'll get rid of that, and then get rid of that. Then say export as MP3. Let's say audio. .mp3. Okay. Yeah. Now when I refresh, well, I don't have audio yet, but like it's putting the correct timings in. So to put the audio in, oh, actually it hadn't, because I hadn't saved the markers file. But now it has the correct timing, so it's 22 seconds long. So to put the audio in, import audio. Audio start equals 0, source equals ./audio/mp3. So there's basically three languages on the web. HTML and Okay, so I'm not sure if it's sharing my sound and if you could hear that, but like it is now playing the audio file. Okay, so now like if you wanted to upload this, now you would upload still index.html, bundle.js, and style.css, but you would also upload this audio file. This is, again, a simplified demonstration. Really, you need to sort of provide, you typically want to provide the audio file in several formats because, for example, like iOS doesn't like some types of files, Chrome doesn't like other types of files. And also you typically don't want to host audio files, which are sort of large files, on your own website or your own server. You maybe want to have a separate place for large audio files, but again, that's sort of getting more into the weeds. So if we did the same thing, but now on a page where we actually can do audio recording. So let me actually go back and put the latest version of this up. So it'll sort of get upset that we don't have an audio file on here, but that's okay. So if I'm on an HTTPS site, then I can select audio and markers, and then again I'll type, or I'll press Control-Alt-2 to start recording and Control-Alt-2 to stop. One advantage of recording audio in the browser is that you can pause recording if you want to take a breath or look at your notes, and that won't affect the audio. So. Okay, so there's basically three languages on the web. HTML, which describes content, and SVG is sort of also part of HTML-ish, which is used for vector graphics. CSS, which describes how content should look. Now here I'm pausing, so I can just sort of make coffee, go to the bathroom, take a walk, and come back, and it won't be picked up at all in the final recording. So then I'll unpause, and then JavaScript, which describes how content should behave. And then here's a totally different example. Okay, so now I still get the markers. I'll copy those again into the file. And this audio file, now I'll save audio.webm. Dev my video audio.webm. And so now I would change this to audio.webm. That's another thing the browser by default records in this other format. Now I refresh. Okay, so there's basically three languages on the web. HTML, which describes content, and SVG is sort of also part of HTML-ish, which is used for vector graphics. CSS, which describes how content should look. And then Java. Okay, and so that sort of long digression I took where I paused the video isn't appearing at all in the markers or in the audio. So that can be a very handy thing to do when recording. So then this is, I tend to break the authoring process up into a few stages. So one is deciding what you want to write, like what you want to say. And I try to do this just writing by hand away from the computer. Then the second is to the authoring stage where you're putting that into the computer and adding sort of the effects and styles that you want. Then recording, when you're recording the audio like we just did. And then the last step is sort of the mastering. So sort of dotting your T's and crossing your I's and doing all that sort of like audio conversion stuff, and then just getting your video onto the public web where people can see it. So I'll cover more of that stuff tomorrow in detail. Maybe one thing you can walk away with today is there's a command to render this to an actual video that you could then upload to YouTube. So you might, while you're figuring out all the sort of finer points of the interactivity, you can still just use this to make traditional videos right away. So for that, we'll type npx rp master render. So this is covered on the documentation site over here. So then I type the URL where I'm accessing my videos. That's localhost 8000. And then I'll call it out.mp4, the video I want to produce. And it'll wait for a few seconds. Just connecting to players. Sometimes this is a little, usually it starts off slow and then sort of catches up and works really quickly after that. But it is not catching up now. What if we try this again? Oh, I know what the issue is. We need to tell it where the audio file is, I think. So -a. -a audio.webm. let's see if that works better. Also might just be slow because I'm recording stuff. Okay, well that is a little awkward. I will fix that, and tomorrow you will be able to export a beautiful MP4 video from your Ractives. So I think that's all I've got for today. Pause recording.